Hello and welcome to Inspiring Women in Travel Asia through Travel Daily. My name is Michaela Connor. I'm the co-founder and committee member of the IWTA, and I'm really honored to be here with Sophie Chen today, who is the founder and coach for Leap with Sophie Chen. So welcome, Sophie. It's such an honor to have you here today. I was so inspired by reading your LinkedIn profile, and I'm super curious. I have like millions of questions in my mind. So I'm really excited to be interviewing you today. Tell us a little bit about what Leap with Sophie Chen is. What is it?
Before that, thank you very much for having me, Michaela, and it's really nice to be here. So Leap with Sophie Chen was something that, well, okay, so backtrack a little bit. So I left the corporate world. I was with the hotel and the integrated resorts, and I was in Macau for many, many years, 15 to be exact. And then my husband and I relocated to Singapore. And so he goes, so what are you going to do in Singapore? I'm like, I don't know. I'll take a break. And he came back and he circled back and go like 2 months later, well, have you thought about it? And I'm like, what is the hurry, really? Just relax. So anyway, and he kind of framed it for me. He's like, I know what you're going to do. You've got three options. One, you go back to hotel. Two, you join the integrated resorts here. There's only two, not much choices, but makes your options, your decision easier. And three, do something with your coaching. Because in the middle of, or actually during COVID, and I took an advice of a coach. I had a coach myself, and I was at a juncture of, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I was not very sort of happy with where I was. And so I engaged a coach, and he was into astrology. And so he was looking at all the different houses, and he said, did you realize that your strength lies in this house of communication? So I don't know what you call them, whether they're signs or whatever. He's like, but whatever it is, like 10 of them sits in the house of communication. So have you ever thought of doing something with it? Coaching, for example. And I'm like, don't be silly. I don't know what you're talking about. So anyway, being a very good coachee, I took his advice and I went to look around for a course or certification in coaching. And so I did that. So I had myself certified. I had 2 certifications. So I'm a certified coach. And then so my husband said, now you've got that certification, why don't you put it to use? And I'm like, I don't know. So I was really taking my time. I took about 6 months. I didn't do anything but just unpack boxes. Yeah, it took me 6 months. So, and while I was doing that, I was part of this school, the coaching school that I was with, and they always organize sort of, webinars and talks for the members. And one day I decided to join one of it. And the title of it was How to Build Your Personal Brand. And then as this presenter was going on, and I go, oh my God, I think she's talking to me. Like, how did she know I was contemplating? How did she know I was gonna, want to start my own coaching practice? So yeah, it felt really weird. So anyway, I reached out to her and I engaged her. So, and that's when I knew, I said, look, I think I want to do this. So I went and set up my own company here in Singapore. I didn't know how to go about it, but with the coach I managed. So I set up the business. It's been a whole year now. So what I do in the business is I work specifically with women from the hospitality, travel, and casino space. Not limiting to, but majority of my clients actually are from that space. And what we do is I do one-on-one private coaching with them. And so my goal is to really empower women and to give them a voice and to let them sort of draw strength from me as a coach, because, we have all kinds of things we battle with, right, as a woman. So I want to be able to offer them that safe space to explore their thoughts, their fears, their barriers, or, whatever it is that's holding them back from moving forward. We all have that. And so I want to be able to be that person that they come to. And so that's how it is. I also do some facilitation with hotels. And I love working with leaders, and leadership is a big topic for me. And because of all my years, I've experienced, different types of leadership. I have transformed myself, from leader day one to day whatever. I've seen myself transform, and I love working with teams. So right now I'm doing some facilitation with hotels as well to work on their leadership. So I'm actually heading off to Maldives next month to do a little program with some.
Oh, wow. That
Yay!
sounds really difficult. Head off to Maldives.
I know it is. It's going to be really rough, Michaela. I can't begin to imagine.
I hear you. It sounds terrible. It sounds terrible. So Sophie, why was it so important to you to focus on women?
Again, my husband said, you're wiping out 50% of the world's population. I'm not being sexist, although someone jokingly said, how's your sexist business coming along? I wanted to work with women because I feel that we do need a voice. I'm a woman. I've started working in the hotels, from the bottom, right? I had to battle a lot of biases, whether it's conscious or unconscious. And, back in those days, it's not as easy to find a mentor or a coach or someone who would cheer you on, right? It's really difficult. I mean, you look up to your boss, and lo and behold, I came from F&B, and 100% of my bosses were men. And I'm not saying that I got nothing from them. I had one or two who really sort of helped me step up. And without them, I think my career trajectory would have been different. But there is really no place for me to go to be vulnerable, right? To say, look, I need help. I'm stuck. I don't know. And I didn't feel safe enough to go to the people I work with or my bosses, etc. And as I go along, I also hear that similar women in leadership capacities, they have the same problem as well, right? And many of my clients now tell me, gosh, it's really lonely being at the top because, again, they don't feel that the environment is safe enough for them to articulate their concerns or, their weaknesses, if you want to put it that way. So I thought, you know what, if I'm going to help anyone, I would really want to help women. So
what are some of the biggest biases that you have come across in your career that you've had to overcome? What has been kind of a common theme throughout your career?
I don't think men like women who are opinionated. I don't think they know how to handle women who speak their mind. Fortunately or unfortunately, I was one of them. And I realized that every time I speak up, and I'm not one of those who would settle for status quo, right? And also talking about integrity. If I see that something is wrong and this is not what we should be standing up for, I will speak up. And to many of my male bosses, they were thinking, now, why are you being such a pain in my whatever? Can't you just shut up and go with the flow and do it? And I said, I can't. I'm sorry. It goes against my grade, right? I can't. If it's wrong, I'll tell you. And that's why you hired me, right? You hired me to tell you what's going to work and what's not going to work. So I find that a lot of them do not take, feedback well, or maybe it's me, it's the way I communicate. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but those are the biases that I find. And also, I've always been sitting in rooms full of men. And I remember one time, I still remember it, the admin to the VP was not there. And we had to take minutes for the meeting. And guess who they asked to take the minutes? Me, right? Sophie, why don't you take the minutes? And at that point, I'm like, I did it for a few times. And then one day I decided, you know what? I'm like, can I just ask why you ask me all the time? And this was obviously in front of the other male colleagues. And they all kind of like giggled. And I'm like, is it funny? I don't think it's funny. Why me? Why can't you take the minutes? Can you write? You can. I'm sure you can write. Your English is much better than me. Why don't you take the minutes? And so they were like, sheepishly laughing it off and say, oh, well, you're very good at it. Why? Because I'm a woman. And I get handed tasks like, the more feminine task. Oh, let's have a Christmas party for the department. Oh, Sophie, why don't you take the lead? Well, why don't Sophie go pick your coffee up from the pantry and serve you? I mean, why are you, so these are the biases that I encounter. And I also realized that I put my hand up for promotion, knowing that I thought I deserved it. I've served my time, I've done it. And I think, look, it's time to have that difficult conversation. Now, what's next for me? I feel that I'm ready for the next position. And then the answer is no, I don't think you're ready. And then when you go one step further, you're like, okay, so why am I not ready? So how can I be ready? Because I want to be a director of restaurant operations. What can I do? And the kind of feedback I get is just so ridiculous. He said, you're too detail oriented. And I'm like, I thought that was one of the prereq of being a leader, right? You have to be detailed. I understand sometimes we have to zoom out and, have that helicopter view of things, but I think being detail oriented comes with our job, right? We should be doing that. And I said, so what does that mean? He's like, yeah, well, let's talk about this another time. And so I was brushed off for promotion. And then a couple of months later, I realized that, so this is not going anywhere. And so I said, enough is enough. I'm going to look for something else. And I found something else, which is a transfer to the next department. So, and then I had a conversation again with my boss. I'm like, so, okay, so I'm moving out in a month, I'm going to be handing over, blah, blah. Is anyone coming in to take over my job? And he's like, oh yeah, so-and-so, who was ex-colleague of mine, he will be coming back and join us and he will take up your role. And then something kind of said, ask him. I'm like, no, I'm not. And so I forced myself to ask him this question. So he denied me of a director's position. So I was so curious. And I said, so is he coming back as a restaurant operations manager, or is he coming back as a director? And that was this dead silence. Right. And for me, that's like, well, I don't see anything that he's doing that I can't do. And I've been doing the job. So why have I not been given the title? Right. So these are the few biases that I encounter along the way.
Sure. So there's biases that we might come across from a different gender. There could be different religion, not necessarily gender. It could be age, biases against age.
Yes, obviously.
It could be, I certainly come across from other women as well. So how, no matter what it is a challenge, right? You have to overcome something that someone think you can't do. Maybe they've said something. How do you, what advice would you give to other women to overcome that, no matter where that came from, whether it was from another woman or another man? How can you kind of stay true to your inner compass and make sure you stay on your own path, stay on track without getting like, Sophie might be right, maybe I'm not ready, or maybe I'm not good enough, What would you recommend to women and men actually? How can they stay true to their inner compass to not listen to those outside voices? I mean, there's feedback, which is good for you.
Yeah.
But it needs to be constructive, right? And then there's feedback that makes absolutely no sense, or it comes from a biased point of view, which is the unhelpful feedback. Yes. Yeah. So what would your advice be?
I would say to stand firm in what you believe in, right? I mean, we all know what we stand for. And if you know that you're ready for the job, by all means, go put your hand up, right? Sit down, have that conversation and ask. And I wish I had a little bit more persistent. I know I will make him so uncomfortable, but be persistent about it, right? How am I not ready? How will I be ready? When will I be ready? Is there a plan in place? So ask those questions and make them or make him or them commit to some kind of a plan, right? Because I'm here to develop myself as well. So, and you as my direct report should be really helping me kind of fulfill that. And if that doesn't happen, I would say just leave, right? Because why would you want to stay in a place that is not healthy for you? Right? Obviously, the synergy is not right. The energy is not right for your growth. So it's all right to just walk away, because you don't want to spend the rest of your career being in a place that you're miserable in and knowing that the glass ceiling, right? So I would call that a ceiling, right? You can't, no matter how much you try, you can't seem to break it. And I don't think it's only just us who has the responsibility to break that. I think the organization and the leaders should be helping you. And well, technically, we shouldn't have to break anything,
Mm.
right? Career progression should be something that's in conversation all the time. So I would say, go for it, do what you can, stand your ground. And if it doesn't work, just walk away and find something else. And it's probably not healthy for you to be there anyway. And I always say as well, growth is not vertical.
Mm.
Growth can be horizontal, right? So if you can't move up, then you move out.
So true.
It could be a different department, it could be a hotel, but horizontal, right? So I do a lateral move, and from there you do the vertical. So
The leap.
the leap, exactly. A lot of people are so fixated with, I just gotta go up. No, you don't have to. You can step out. You know, be flexible. Don't be so fixated. Growth happens, all around you, and you just have to be able to see what you can do.
Yeah. So you were in a full-time, job with lots of certainty, your paycheck gets in every month. And then you took the leap, see what I did there? Took the leap to start your own business. So now you're self-employed, and there's many of us that will have those dreams. So how do you literally take that step? How do you find that courage to actually do it? Because the certainty of a paycheck that the amount every single month, you go to the same place and work, it's quite a comfort zone. It's quite comforting knowing I can pay my bills, I can pay my rent.
Yeah.
But when you remove that, all of a sudden everything is on you. So how did you find that courage to actually take the leap, to start Leap by Sophie Chen?
Good question. Very valid question. I took a big gulp of whiskey. Listen, it's not easy. I'm not gonna lie, right? I've just passed my 1 year of setting up the company, and there are days where I go, why on earth am I doing this to myself? Just go back, work, like you said, it's certainty. You get your paycheck at the end of every month. You know exactly what's going to happen, more or less. And, you don't have to really worry. But being a solopreneur, an entrepreneur, you worry all the time, right? Like, you do everything yourself, first off. I'm a coach, right? So I coach. I have to do business development. I have to look into my finances, that if I need to hire someone, I'm the HR. So like I'm the content writer. So you do everything. And some days I really go, you know what, I'm going to throw in my towel and I'm just going to go back to work. But then I come back to, why did I do this in the first place? So I have it here on my wall. Remember why you started. And that kind of keeps me grounded, right? It takes a lot of courage, I have to say. You have to be really brave. And having that support network to help you with it. I mean, my family is amazing. They support me. My husband is my best cheerleader, right? And he's like, no, just do it, right? If you don't try, you'll never know. And you always wonder, oh, what if I've actually done it? What if so all this what ifs, so let's just get it out of the way and go and do it. Now, who am I to say that I will succeed or fail? If I succeed, wonderful. And if I fail, well, here's the coach talking. I don't believe in failures, right? They're only lessons and there's no failure. So if the business doesn't get to continue for whatever reasons, then fine, I go back to employment. What's the worst thing that can happen, right? It's not the end of the world. But if I don't try, I'll never know. But so far, I think it's going in the right trajectory. The starting off was not as difficult as I thought it would be, because I had a coach guiding me along the way. But obviously, there are bumps, there are ups and downs. But I'm very certain that this is what I want to do, because I want to be able to see results. I want to be able to see the results that I can make or create. Because when you work in an organization, you don't necessarily see that immediate impact that you make on people's lives. And I get to see it right now. And I get to choose who I want to work with, whether it's a private client or corporate companies. And I can cherry pick, right? I am in control of my time. And like you said, how difficult it is going to Maldives to conduct a workshop.
Very awful, awful. Yes.
Yeah, so I think it's you need to be brave enough to step out there, and knowing that all the experiences that you've gained in your corporate world, in my corporate world, they're more than enough to kind of, you know, help you start something. But you need to be passionate enough about it to kind of say, look, it's going to be a bumpy ride. You know, my paycheck's not going to come in every month at the rate that I want it to. But do have that support, because I mean, I'm realistic, right? I need to pay rent, I need to eat, I need to whatever. So have that support in place, whatever that may look like. Have the people supporting you. And I know I'm promoting coaching here, but it is very important, right? Coaching or mentoring. Have someone who has been there, done that, to help you walk through that journey, so that you cut that learning time into half, right? Why reinvent the wheel if someone else have done it before and they are willing to part the knowledge to you? So yeah.
I think my favorite, because that fear of failure, right, is probably one of the key reasons I hear all the time. It's the fear that holds us back from leaping into the unknown. But I read this different way of thinking about it is fail, F-A-I-L, is first attempt in learning. And I read it and I thought, that is so true, because every time I failed, I've learned and grown so much more than the times I've succeeded.
Of course.
And you can't succeed without failure. Like it's so much sweeter when you know you've tried so hard and you've had a bumpy ride and some things just didn't work out, but you got there, and it feels, it's a proud moment.
It is.
Because if it's too easy, it's just easy, and it's very demotivating when it's too easy. So,
yeah, I'm sure you have heard of it too, right? Growth happens in a place that's uncomfortable, right? If you're comfortable, you're too complacent, you know, you get lazy and blah blah blah. And so yeah, growth only happens if you're in a very uncomfortable state. You know, I still remember, right? The business coach that I hired, I couldn't sleep the night. So I engaged, you know, made the payments and blah, blah. And then that same night I couldn't sleep. And I was like, what is wrong? Like, why can I not sleep? So when I eventually talked to her the next day, she said, it is very normal. It is because you're now stepping into the unknown. You don't know, you've never done this before. And you don't know what's at the end of that road.
You feel quite vulnerable.
Yeah. You know, you have obviously all these thoughts going in, the chatter, the village that's chattering in your head, like, are you sure you want to do this? You know, what if you this, what if you fail, you know, blah. So there's all these kind of thoughts in this, I would call it the village chatter. So yeah, it's she says it's normal that you couldn't sleep very well last night. And I go, God, okay, thank you. I'm glad I'm not the only person. So yeah.
That's good advice. What does lead with purpose mean to you? Lead with purpose. What does it mean? If you could describe it in 3 words.
Lead with purpose, what it means. Knowing 3 words going to be difficult, Michaela. How about I string in a sentence? So leading with purpose for me is really to know what you stand for, where you want to go with the people that you're leading, right? Some people just lead with no objectives or whatever. Whenever I take on a new leadership role, I always want to make sure, okay, I know what my end objective is. Obviously, you're given a mandate, like I want to see this at the end of whatever. So yeah, fine. So you take that, and then leading you don't do it alone. I think you do it with a team of people, right? So you work with them, and I always say, you know, this is what I need to get to. Now I need you to help me. So these are all the things, and break it up into little pieces, bite sizes, for people to be able to catch on and then move with you. Because that for me is leading with purpose, and everyone kind of benefits at the end of that. When we reach that objective, not just have we reached the business objectives, I want the people in my team to also would have learned and gotten something out of it, whether it's a personal growth, you know, or a promotion or something. So everybody benefits from that. So that to me is leading with purpose. Yeah. Would that answer your question?
That was, it was a very good description, very good description. Now, from your clients and your interaction with them, or we talked a little bit about, breaking those barriers and it's time to break the glass ceiling. So what are some of the common barriers for women to get into the unknown? What is it that you're hearing from your clients that are reoccurring themes?
Themselves, right? The barrier is ourselves.
Yeah.
Or whatever funny thoughts we have in our head. So the common theme is many leaders come to me because some will come to me because of a new leadership role that they're trying to transition into. Hence, a lot of fear and vulnerability, like, I'm not sure if I can do it again, first time positions for them. There's so many now that the stakeholders are watching me, the people are criticizing, when you're being promoted and and I always tell her, I said, look, our job right now is to get you to sit in this chair, a secure chair, and then we can talk about the rest later, right? So helping them kind of get beyond their own fears, right? Their limiting thoughts. I also have clients who come to me and say, look, I'm happy where I am. I don't necessarily need a big promotion, a big title. And then you dig a little deeper, and it's because in Cantonese, we have a saying, right? If you don't have such a big head, you don't wear such a big hat. And I challenged her on that. I'm like, well, what makes you think you don't have a big head enough? You don't have a head big enough to wear a bigger hat. So through our conversations, she then realized that, hey, actually, I do want to grow. Actually, I do want to aspire to be one day a department head. And so 3 months down the road, she got herself a new job and a new role. So for me, that was amazing, right? Like, people start off with me thinking, that's it. I just want to maybe learn a few things here and there, or, try. But then they don't realize that it is in them. It's just a matter of shifting that thought, can you or can you not? And every one of us have that capability. And the other thing as well, which is a common theme, because a lot of my clients are Asians, and we always think we have to be perfect. And a lot of them actually sort of but they would sort of use their childhood, like their parents, Asian parents do this a lot to their kids, right? You have to be top of your class. You have to be this. You have to be perfect. You have to be this, and that. And then when we grow up and we also, hold on to that belief that we have to be perfect. If we're not perfect, we're not suited for this. Or if we're not perfect enough, we're not going to be ready for the next role. Hence, we don't put our hand up. So that perfectionist thing is really the paralysis for us to move forward, right? There is no such thing as perfect, but because it's been so ingrained in us, like, you have to be perfect, you have to be 10 out of 10, but you really don't have to be, right? You just have to be 80% before you move on to the next role. And then if I was 100%, why would I want that role? I go into that role to learn, right? So yeah, so a lot of the women, they hold themselves back, and all this limiting thoughts. That's the common theme, I feel.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot as well, interviewing different women from different walks of life, different countries, different departments of the tourist industry. But it's very inspiring. It's we're all dealing with very similar challenges and barriers. But what comes through as a very common theme is, and you mentioned it too, is having that support system that will go, and the same with my husband, he'll go, what are you doing? Of course you can do it. You can do it.
Yeah.
Why are you talking like that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you're right. I should not talk to myself like that, because I tell my kids not to ever say to themselves they can't do something, but then you have a little voice in there sometimes that pop up, and he straight away, he goes, no. We don't ever think that you need to hold yourself back or think that you can't do something. It's that fear again of embracing a challenge where the shoe size is a bit big, it's a bit too big for you, but that's where the biggest growth. And you're right, if you're already at 100%, it's not going to be challenging.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be mega fun because you kind of already know what you're doing at 100%.
Exactly.
So the learning won't be as much or as beneficial, I guess.
Yeah.
So what if you could go back in time and look at your young self, what advice would you give yourself now, knowing what you know now? What advice would you give yourself?
What would I tell my younger self? I would say you could have been a little bit more assertive, right? Could have been. Remove that fear. And I know that I am assertive to a certain degree, but I also don't kind of go all out because I fear, like, if I'm too outspoken, I will be punished or penalized or fired or whatever. There's always this thought. And I wish I was a little bit more assertive, and maybe, again, the career would have been, trajectory would have been a little bit different. But yeah, speak up. I didn't speak up till at the later stage of my career. I was very timid. I never liked to put my hand up. I'm always quiet, and and I remember going to meetings, and I told myself, you have to say something at this meeting. It doesn't have to be that intelligent, but you have to say something at a meeting. And I forced myself, and I think that's it's all these things. It boils down to fear again, right? Fear of looking not very smart, fear of looking stupid, fear of making a silly remark. So all this fear. But yeah, I would tell myself that I could have been a little bit more assertive and maybe articulate things differently. Sometimes we speak too directly, and when you're too direct, you kind of hurt a few people, which in turn will hurt you. So yeah, I would wish that someone would have given me feedback because of my blind spots, right? To say, look, it's good to be direct. However, there are ways of doing it, right? Maybe change your words or the tone, just articulate it a little differently so that the person receiving it may not sort of get stabbed in the heart. I don't know. Right. So yeah, those are the two things I would tell my younger self.
Very good advice. It's very confronting to having to look inside yourself for those blind spots, or having someone else pointing out what your blind spots are. But it's if you can embrace those and work on those, I think it's super great for personal development. And also, I think we forget often, we always think about with a negative bias where things you're not good at, I'm not so good at that part. I'm not so good at this. I don't think I can do this because of. But if we can focus on enhancing our strengths, like imagine what we could achieve or what we could do, instead of focusing our energy and time of trying to make those lesser strengths the strongest, because there might not be those things that are your natural abilities. So we all have natural abilities. And I just think, I think our differences is what makes us unique, because how boring would it be if we were all the same and we all had the same strengths and then we couldn't point out each other's blind sides because we all have the same blind spots. So so it'd be a very boring world. And I think we can do more to empower each other and help each other and help each other see the strengths that we have, because it's probably something that you don't look for yourself. Because normally you don't want to talk well about yourself. I'm really good at these things. It's not normally in the nature. So I think all your lessons today has been so giving and very inspiring, Sophie. So thank you so much for sharing your story. Really appreciate your time today and your journey and your background and how you got into LEAP by Sophie Chen is amazing, an amazing story.
Thank you, Mika.
And I know you're going to have years and years from here with LEAP by Sophie Chen and lots of more stories to tell. So can't wait to follow you on this journey. Thank you so much for sharing today.
Thank you very much for your vote of confidence. That's what I need. Thank you.
Thank you.